Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Today we're back with the Lizardmen. I actually haven't played the Lizardmen in some time. Going to be taking on Norska, hence the reason old Crocky G here is on foot, and he is looking like a G here with his gold armor, his cool sci-fi-ish spear, and Hand of the Gods, of course. And yeah, I got some Temple Guard to back him up. We've got some Cold One Spear Riders, Gary, the friendly Bastillodon, a couple more Cold One Spear Riders out to the flanks. We've got some Skinks supporting, only could afford Javelins on one of them, unfortunately, but definitely glad I've got these Javelins. We've got front line of Source Warriors with shields, a couple of Skink Skirmishers who can potentially pay dividends in this matchup in terms of this Skink Priest here, Lore of Heavens. We've got a couple spells. Harmonic Convergence, of course, useful in pretty much any situation, but particularly in a key engagement or to help a low-tier unit trade very well with a higher-tier unit. Wind Blast, of course, to take out low-armor infantry, and Curse of Midnight Wind to help sunder armor so that the non-AP missile units like these Skink Cohort and the Skink Skirmishers, who, oh, they're way up there, they'll do much more damage if you can sunder the armor of your opponent, and typically the Norskins have low armor anyway, so you know, the Famir and the Mammoth are going to be your main targets with the missile units here, so that Curse of Midnight Wind definitely helps in that respect. And of course, that lowering the melee attack always helps against an offensive type faction like the Norskins here. Speaking of which, Norskins haven't brought any Famir, unfortunately, which I think is a big mistake, definitely. Famir, particularly with great weapons, are a super strong pick in this matchup, but my opponent does have Throgg, who's also a very strong pick in this matchup. A Lorifier Shaman Sorcerer on foot. He's got this Mammoth War Shrine, so looking for that fire synergy there with the Giver of Glory, and then of course looking for that Kindle Flame as well. He's also got Cascading Fire Cloak and the Burning Head. Some Marauder Champions with shields up front. Interesting choice. Don't see these guys too often, but I do think they could be a reasonable option in certain matchups. Coupling them with Famir, I think, would be pretty decent in this matchup. They do have shields, so they won't get shot up quite as much as something like Berserkers, which my opponent does have a couple of as well. A couple of Marauder Hunters with the Throwing Axes, Spearmen to back them up, and he also does have a Skinwolf Werekin. So let's get things rolling. Right off the bat, you can see gonna pull up and do some skirmishing. My opponent really doesn't have any fast attack units to threaten my Skink Skirmishers. There's no Norskin Ice Wolves or anything like that. I definitely think one or two groups of Ice Wolves can be a pretty solid pick in this matchup to help run down Skink Skirmishers. Skink Skirmishers themselves, these are not the Chameleon Skinks, so they don't have stock or the missile resistance, but you know, they still have solid missile damage. If we take a look, 2 AP overall, which isn't the best, but nice Burning Head from my opponent. Going to catch a few of those Skinks. Thankfully, due to the loose formation of the Skinks, a Burning Head like that won't actually catch too much of them if they're not engaged into melee combat, so it's going to be alright for us. We've done some okay skirmishing. Honestly, haven't done that much damage at the end of the day, but yeah, just kind of poking at my opponent as he advances here, trying to break up his formation a little bit and just make him a little bit uncomfortable. Yeah. And overall, the Hand of the Gods, I'm not sure if I caught that quite yet, but looks like haven't. We're going to pop that Hand of the Gods off and hit Throgg. Hand of the Gods is essentially a bound Shem's Burning Gaze. I believe it's actually the overcast version of Shem's Burning Gaze in terms of the damage output, but Shem's Burning Gaze does magic and fire damage. There it goes. We're going to pop it off here against Throgg, of course, since he's weak to fire damage, and it actually does a pretty solid amount of damage there. You can see about 20% of its HP, give or take. And yeah, super solid. I'd be curious to try actually like a light slot with maybe Nets of Amantok and Shem's Burning Gaze to be essentially like a sniper slot, just popping off Shem's Burning Gaze at Throgg constantly. I don't know how well that would work, but something potentially worth trying. But anyway, we're just going to be continuously skirmishing with these Marauder Hunters here. I obviously have superior range and I can fire in 360, so we should be able to get the better of that skirmish engagement. Just kind of, again, poking and prodding at my opponent as he advances here, making sure to disrupt these skirmishers and as many other high value units as possible. And as my opponent advances here, he's going to have a pretty tough time getting through these Source Warriors with shields. You know, obviously the War Mammoth will kind of monster mash them pretty hard, and Throgg will do quite a bit of damage to large targets, but obviously that's the reason you bring Kroq-Walker on foot in this matchup, is because you won't get that bonus versus large here. We're going to push in with the Cold One Knights. They also have a bonus versus large. It looks like they are being poisoned, unfortunately, but yeah. We're going to drop that Curse of Midnight Wind, and we've pulled the Skink Skirmishers into the backline here, and so this War Mammoth, which only has 70 armor baseline, suddenly down to only 40 armor, and such a high value unit is going to take some pretty horrendous damage from these Skink Skirmishers, considering they're such a cheap skirmish unit, only 400 points, and they're going to be able to do some solid damage. Combine with the fact that he's standing on top of the Temple Guard. We've got Kroq-Walker in here as well. You know, just kind of mixing it up with his spear and his Hand of the Gods. Where's Kroq-G in here? A little bit hard to see mixed in with all these other lizards here, but yeah, it's going to be an uncomfortable situation to say the least for that mammoth. It's going to be routed off in short order. Despite how much health it has, we've been able to work through it pretty quickly. Unfortunately, the Skinwolf did get into the back line, but honestly, the Skinwolf Werekin, I've found damage output to be a little bit mediocre. It also has the problem of getting knocked around quite a bit, like I wouldn't be surprised. Yep, see, he got knocked over there by only these Cold One Riders. So just the fact that he has kind of the same mass issues that Gorebull has, you know, it definitely makes him underperforming character. You saw we got a nice wind blast there to those Marauders, these Berserkers, in fact, who are surrounded. And my opponent's going to respond with a very nice Burning Head here. Unfortunately, he's only catching Skinks, so not the most cost-effective spell, but it will definitely rout off those Skinks, especially because that Mammoth just came back from routing. Unfortunately for Throgg, though, Kroq-G's in the back line here, mixing it up, and oh man, look at those spin moves and stuff. And Kroq-Walker actually has really good mass on foot. He's very hard to knock over, so he can trade very well in a situation like this, where he's facing off against a monstrous-type Lord on foot, especially if you give him something like a Harmonic Convergence. He retains his bonus versus large and armor piercing, obviously no fear and terror and so on, but yeah, he's actually going to see Throgg off here, combined with the help, of course, of Gary, the effervescent Revivification Crystal here, catching that cold-blooded himself. Going to be waddling off to do his duty elsewhere. But yeah, the Mammoth at this point is going to be routed off also by the Temple Guard, who have been very cost-effective in dealing with some of these large threats. And at this point, my opponent is going to admit defeat. He doesn't have a whole lot left. This Werekin still alive, but he's getting taken down by the Cold One Spear Riders, who he hit with that Revivification Crystal. And these Skink Skirmishers continuously throwing their, I guess, blowing their blowpipes. Is that what they've got? They've got little blowpipes, yeah. So anyway, very fun stuff. Well played, my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. It's definitely fun to try this matchup out from the Lizardman side. And one of you had suggested taking Kroq-Walker on foot, and I definitely see the viability of that. Just the fact that he has such good mass, and his animations make him really hard to knock over. Hand of the Gods is really nice to use against Throgg, and I'd imagine if you used it on the Werekin or other Skinwolves, it would have similar effects, so very nice. The Heavens Caster also very effective in this matchup as a backup to Kroq-G. Be curious to try a Light Salon, like I said, just as an all-in-one sort of character. But I do think that Kroq-G brings a lot to the table in this matchup, especially on foot, so I like that. Saurus Warriors were able to do pretty well up front. Granted, my opponent didn't bring any Famir, which definitely would have stacked things in his favor more. I think the Famir would have definitely been a better investment than the Mammoth. I mean, you can get the Famir Miststalkers, for example, for 1,500. They also come with the Fear and Terror. They're a bit cheaper. They come with the Armor Sundering as well, so they really synergize well with your Marauders. Then, in terms of magic, I'd probably say you want to bring Lord of Shadows, like a Shadows Balefiend. Again, he himself has the Armor Sundering, so you can throw him in the front line to help the Marauder champions and the Berserkers. And then you also get Enfeebling Foe. Penumbral Pendulum is a wind spell, which my opponent had some very effective use there of that Burning Head. You just swap that out with Penumbral Pendulum, and you get similar effects. So yeah, in terms of my opponent's build, I like a few elements, but like I said, I'd probably bring a Shadow Caster. The champions, you know, they actually did pretty decently. I might have to try those myself in this matchup as a frontline supplement. But yeah, I'd probably trade out the Marauder Hunters with axes too, maybe bring Javelins instead, just because, again, Dinos, they would have been very effective as well shooting at the Cold One Spear Riders. But yeah, it's an interesting matchup, certainly. Definitely one that can go either way, and it definitely bears some experimentation. Obviously, Lizardmen are the only Game 2 faction that still only has 2 lords. They're sitting with the Wood Elves and the Norskins themselves, in fact, with only 2 legendary lords. But yeah, hopefully they'll be getting there soon. And their Regiments of Renown as well should be coming along very shortly as well. So hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thank you once again for watching, and we'll see you next time.